I'd like to thank the sponsors for this week's drasha. Firstly, Rebecca and Yaniv Natanov, in memory of Rebecca's mother, Gershona Bas Michael, Zichron Levracha, for her second yortzeit. Thank you very much. Her neshama should have an aliyah. And also Judy and Stuart Rosenthal, in gratitude to Hashem. And thank you very much. And you should, Judy and Stuart, you should continue to benefit from so many of Hashem's blessings. So here we are. We're coming to the holiday of Purim. The holiday of Purim, more than any other day on our calendar, I think we associate with simcha, with joy. And I think it's reasonable for a person to feel challenged this year in relating in a joyous way to any day on our calendar. We have so many things going on in our lives, so many things concerning us that might very well be impediments to our feeling joy. Additionally, so many of the things that we associate with joy in our regular observances of Purim either won't be happening at all this year or will be happening in a very different way. And so some of our old standbys of joy won't even be working this year, won't even be happening this year. So how are we to relate to Purim when it might be difficult to feel that joy? And I would argue to you that particularly if someone is grappling with one or both of these difficulties, this Purim is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. Not only for one day, but perhaps even an opportunity to slightly recalibrate ourselves and give ourselves a different approach to things. And the basic thesis I'd like to posit to you for a few minutes today is that I'm not sure the way we relate to Purim is the only way to look at it. How do we normally relate to Purim? We relate to Purim that, well, it's such a happy story, or thank God we've got great things going on in our lives, and Purim is a great time for us to connect the happiness in our own lives to the happiness of the Purim story. And so it's just a day to celebrate. And all the mitzvos of the day, all the commandments of the day, give us a way either to channel that happiness or to appropriately prioritize that happiness, something like that. Maybe we could look at Purim a little bit differently this year. Maybe Purim should be a day of happiness, and actually the nature of the mitzvos, of the special obligations we have on the day of Purim, and the special practices we have on the day of Purim, as prescribed by the rabbis, are a way to bring out our happiness. Normally it's academic. It brings out the happiness, channels the happiness. You came in a little more happy, you came in a little less happy, you kind of connect to the people around you, and we're all happy. But maybe part of the chachma, part of the wisdom of the mitzvahs of Purim is the mitzvahs themselves help us gain happiness. So I'd like to share with you some thoughts about the mitzvahs. I don't think I'm coming at this with any tremendously novel ideas. If it's boring, I apologize. But I was somewhat inspired by this thinking in the last day or two myself, and maybe it'll be of some assistance to somebody out there. Firstly, we have the mitzvah of reading the Megillah. The Purim story is a very happy story. But it's not enough to just hope that we think of the happy aspects and become happy. We have a need to review the story, to think things through, to give it another look. Isn't that interesting to think about? Regardless of what's going on in our lives, we all have something to be happy about. We really, really do. Maybe there's something very nice that's happened among the challenges. Maybe there have been some silver linings among the challenges. Maybe the fact that there's hope that things will turn around at some point. Maybe that itself is the happy thing we can latch onto. Just want to remind everyone, I know there's been great frustrations with the vaccine and the distribution of the vaccine. I really think we're extremely fortunate the vaccines came out as quickly as they did. My understanding is it was basically the speed, and of course with appropriate testing of the vaccines, was really unprecedented to my understanding. So it's not enough to have a happy thing going on in one's life. One has to focus on it. One has to reflect on it. The same way we do with the Purim story. By the way, if one really can't think of anything to be happy about, the Purim story itself is a wonderful thing to be happy about. Whether the story, to just attach to the story, whether it be to keep on asking myself, my gosh, if I was living through that story, what would have been my thoughts at the time? And look how it all turned out. There's hope in my life too. But that's one thing. Just reflecting. The rabbis compelled us to think about the Purim story. We listened to the Megillah twice on Purim. Item number 1. Item number 2, there's a lot of discussion about this and what the nature is of it and why it is. But the topic of drinking on Purim, I don't want to give a whole talk about drinking on Purim. But the Gemara, the words of the Gemara are very famous. That a person, whatever exactly this means, a person should drink on Purim. Ad lo yada ben arur haman lebarach Mordechai. Of course, let me just say, if a person were to drink on Purim, it's essential that it be safe. And if one has any doubts that it would be safe, one shouldn't be doing it. Certainly younger people shouldn't be doing it, that's for sure. But in any event, we say that there's some concept of reaching the point on Purim that we don't know the difference between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai. What's the point of that? So on some level, on the most basic of levels, the point is that a person should reach the point where they don't have so much mental clarity. That, of course, is the point. But of all the examples we could have given, the specific example of not knowing the difference between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai is, I think, a very powerful message the rabbis are imparting. And much is said about this, but just to give one possible perspective. So it's a positive thing for Mordechai to have good things going on in his life. It's a positive thing for Haman, from our vantage point. It's a positive thing for Haman to have bad things going on in his life. Haman is our enemy. We spend so much of our time trying to figure out what we're hoping for, what we're not hoping for, analyzing. Is something a good thing? Is something a bad thing? Is this a blessing from above? Is this a curse from above? What exactly should I daven for? We need to have a perspective on everything. At least we feel that way. It's a fascinating point to reflect on. The rabbis are advising us to reach a point on Purim that we're not even sure what the difference is between bad for Haman or good for Mordechai. It's hard to know. It's hard to know what's better. It's hard to know what's not as good. Sometimes it's even hard to know what's good and what's bad. If I demand of myself that I need to have a perspective and an outlook on every occurrence and every event, I'm doing myself a terrible disservice. I'm causing myself so much angst and so much worry and so much uncertainty. I don't know. It's God's department. All I know is I know that good things have happened in my life. I believe that good things will continue to happen in my life. And I'll leave it to God to figure out what's really good, what's kind of good, and what's bad. Not my problem. Not my department. That's a second point. And then we have two other mitzvahs. Of course, there's the mitzvah of the meal itself, which certainly has to do with channeling one's happiness and giving oneself an opportunity to be happy. Wonderful. And then there are two other mitzvahs. One is matanos levyonim, gifts to the poor, and one is mishloach manos, sending gifts to a friend. So let's think about matanos levyonim. Matanos levyonim is not only if you're happy, how could you not share your happiness with others by looking out for people less fortunate than you? More than that, one of the greatest ways to be happy in life is to help another person. So if it's a time in our lives that we feel we're very challenged and it's hard to focus on the positives and it's hard to see the good in our lives, figure out a way to help someone. Reach out to someone who's lonely. Volunteer for an organization. Give charity. Do something. Do something for another person. You're taking control of your own life. You're infusing your life with goodness and kindness. That feels good. You're compelling yourself to see that no matter what else is going on in your life, you can make the world better. That's a wonderful feeling. And if one doesn't have other things to make one happy in life, that's something that can make us happy in life. And the final thing, and the final point, is something that I think we all intuitively get by now. But I just would like to point it out in the context of a mitzvah. The value in interpersonal relationships is not only helping another person, not only doing an act of kindness, but just connecting to another person. And by the way, connecting to another person where I don't have the upper hand, where it's not my great benevolence that's driving the relationship. Just having a friend. Just having someone who I appreciate. Just having someone who appreciates me. And celebrating that connection. Shalach manos, of course, as we know, can be very, very simple. Just have to bring it to one person. 2 foods to one person. You're showing that person that you're thinking of them. You're showing that person that you're interested in them. Though obviously one can give shalach manos in a way that's fused by kindness, that's not the nature of the mitzvah. It's fine to do it that way. It's laudable to do it that way. But the way the pasuk describes in Megillas Esther, the way the pasuk describes shalach manos is mishloach manos ish l're'ehu. To send items, a person to his friend, to his equal. So these are some very simple ideas. Again, just to review. One is to, like we have in the Megillah, to reflect on the good in our lives. Regardless of what else is going on. Reflect on the good in our lives. 2, like we have the directive from the Gemara, to not know the difference between cursed be Haman, blessed be Mordechai. To remind ourselves, we don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to have it all figured out. That's greatly stress-inducing to feel you have to have it all figured out. Just do our best. 3 is to find an opportunity. To find an opportunity to reach out to a person, reach out to an organization, to do acts of kindness. And 4 is just cultivate more connections between ourselves and other people. I think this is a perspective on Purim. I think if we think of Purim in this way, we can enhance our simcha. I think we can. If we think of each of these mitzvahs as ways to build ourselves up. And I think if we reflect on these messages from Purim, we can take this and move forward with it and become people of greater happiness. I'm really remiss. I should have done this at the beginning, but I'm only remembering now. I want to publicly thank Dr. Howie Schulman for his great, great efforts in putting together the lovely Purim Spiel, which surely will also bring happiness to many people and has brought happiness to many people. Thank you to all the people involved in the Spiel, but far and beyond everyone else is Howie, and he put so much effort into it and so much work into it. Big Yasher Koach. And I also just want to mention, I guess it's opportune that I gave such a dry, boring introduction this week. Hopefully you don't feel that way. Because you're not going to hear from me for the next 2 weeks. I want to give a very, very big thank you to Dr. Mark Katz and all of the members of the Assistant Rabbi Search Committee. They have worked very, very hard on putting together a choice for us as a shul of 2 each very, very special candidates. I think our shul would be well served with either one of them. And I do want to just say that I think it's a very important position in the shul. And I thank the Assistant Rabbi Search Committee for working so hard. For the next 2 weeks, God willing, there will be Divrei Torah presented each week from another candidate. You can consult the communication from the shul for more details about the selection process. I want to wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful Purim. And it's a challenging year, but may we find happiness in Purim. And of course, the greatest happiness is to remember our very special connection to Hashem. A happy Purim, everybody.